All right, today is the second talk I'm going to do on demons and dealing with demons. And as I've been getting ready for these talks, I've been rereading a book that I read many years ago by Francis McNutt, and it's called Deliverance from Evil Spirits. And I thought right away I would just mention that because what I do is not like what a systematic theologian does. I'm not going to go through all the biblical evidence of demons and trying to prove things to you, or just giving you, here are the 19 things that demons do, and here are the 20 things that you can do. I basically take my experiences, take things that I've learned, I've fumbled through along the way, and I pass them on to try and expand people's thinking or get them to begin thinking about something that they haven't thought of before. And so if this whets your appetite, he's a guy that you can go to and you can get more of that stuff. And as I've been reading him, or like I said, rereading him, I realize that I'm exactly one of the guys that he's talking about, because he writes in there and he says that everybody he knows of that helps people deal with demons is somebody who got into it because of their experience. It's not because of their theology. It's not because they studied it in seminary. It's because things were happening around them that they couldn't explain. Or they were trying to help people and something was missing. They couldn't help people without understanding another component. And that's exactly what happened in my life. I didn't start on this journey to go, I'm going to learn about demons and I'm going to help people deal with demons. I started going places and my body would react to things. It was like my arm would go places and I would just be flexed and I couldn't unflex it. Or I would go places and for a year, every time that I was in the room with a demon and trying to eat, I couldn't eat because I would get nauseous. And I learned, through talking to lots of people and through experiencing this, that, oh, that I get that when there's a demon, and found out that being nauseous and dizzy are actually common things that happen to people when there's a demon around. But it was all this, my experience, what is going on? And that's what drove me to do this. And then I found out, just like McNutt, that not a whole lot of people are doing this, and not a whole lot of people are actually going around talking about this and trying to help others with it. And so that's my hope that, like I said, some of this whets your appetite, or some of this actually gives you something that helps you deal with demonic influence in your life, or allows you to take it, have a fuller view of life, and better be able to help other people. And I was going to give you a couple of things today to think about, but then I realized I can only give you one, because this one has to stand on its own. Because a guy like Francis, I believe he deals with a whole lot of people in that sliding scale that we talked about of demonic influence. He deals with a whole lot of people that are probably in that 5 to 9 range. I deal mainly with people who are in that 2 to 4, 2 to 5 range. And amongst those people, their heads aren't spinning, they are not manifesting the demon isn't talking through them, things like that. So in these lower tiers of demonic influence, this is the way that demons influence people. And if you don't understand this, you will be influenced, or you are being influenced in some way. This is what you have to understand. Demons impact your thoughts and feelings. Demons give you thoughts and feelings. You simply must understand, or you must begin to open up to the fact that not all the thoughts you have and not all the feelings you have are your own. Now remember when we talked about hearing from God, when I was giving some of those lessons, I said, remember that at the core, I'm a spirit that lives in a body. You're a spirit that lives in a body. That's the core of who we are. But we talk about hearing and we talk about speaking because our spirits live in a body. But demonic spirits, angelic spirits, the Holy Spirit, all of these things are going on in the spiritual realm, and they don't have bodies. And so they have to communicate in some way. And most of the time, they communicate without words. So it comes as a compulsion, it comes as a feeling, it comes as a thought. And so all around you, in this world, there are billions of people and millions and billions billions of spirits because of all those people, and then all kinds of myriads upon myriads of angelic spirits and demonic spirits. So all over the place in the spiritual realm, spirits are interacting. And so I even say, if you've ever had that experience where you just met someone and you go, wow, there's a connection there. And maybe no words have been said. And I'm not talking about sexual attraction, because that's a different animal altogether. I'm talking about you meet someone and you go, whoa, I want to get to know that person better. There's a connection that we have. There's something that I feel that's deeper than just an ordinary meeting. Well, often that is, I think, your spirit and their spirit are connecting at a spiritual level. In Francis McNutt's book, he taught, I'm going to give you one line here, and if you only take one thing from this, if you only take one line from this whole talk, this is the line that I want you to get. He's talking about a woman who was really into demonic stuff. She was a witch, and now I believe in the story she's been healed of that, and it's years later, and they're talking to her. And what was it like when you wanted to get out of it? And so when she tried to get out of all that, she actually went to a Catholic church, she went to a Catholic priest, and they wouldn't and couldn't help her because they weren't prepared for it, they didn't believe in it, all of that going on. And so they asked her, they're interviewing her, and they said, well, what did you do then? And she said, I got mad and I destroyed their church. And so this is like it should be like a ghost story, and you go, ooh, how did the demons destroy the church? And here's the line. This was her one line that she said, I put thoughts in their heads. That's how she did it through these demonic spirits. So she said, with the people in there, I started putting disunifying thoughts. Well, look at that person over there, and I don't like that. Thoughts like that. And have you ever noticed your thoughts? Have you ever paid attention to your thoughts? Have you ever seen, like if you go to Walmart or you go walking around in a mall, how immediately you judge people? That person there, they're fat. That person's a loser. She's beautiful, whatever. Many times, again, I'm becoming convinced that is the influence of demons. It's like you don't even know the person. You just immediately have this thought about them in your head, however. I put thoughts in their heads. That's exactly what she did. She put judgmental thoughts in people's heads, and they tore each other apart after that because they had no room in their theology for, some of these thoughts aren't mine. And so if they had the thought, they believed in the thought. Well, that must be what I really believe. And the priest there, he actually quit. He resigned from his job. And you know why? She said she put thoughts of boys in his head. Well, if you want to mess with a good priest, you put thoughts of young boys in his head. And if he's a good priest, he does what this one does, and he gets out of it. He quits. But he quit thinking, oh no, I'm perverted. What's the matter with me? Instead of realizing it was a demonic thought and it wasn't his. This guy left his calling in life. The church was destroyed because the demons simply put thoughts in people's heads. And let me just say this. Some people have thoughts from a demon that are, you should do this and things like that. I've read about that. I haven't ever met somebody like that, though. I've only met the people who had thoughts from demons that were I. The thought is like, it's my own. Because most of the time, I think the demon wants to stay hidden, but that's another talk. If it stays hidden, then it can control you, and you don't even know how to go after it. Let me give you some stories from my own life. So things that I have actually seen. A while ago, I dealt with two different women, and they ended up knowing each other. And the demonic thought actually passed from one woman to the other. Now this first woman over here wanted to have a baby, and it was a bad time to have a baby. She was getting ready to have a divorce, but she had demonic influence in her life. She wants a baby. Now, I'm not saying that's always a bad thing, but sometimes there are some of those desires that are not from God and they're not from us. We have to realize demons can do things like this. Do you remember when I shared the story about our first adoption and how my wife and I were fine not having kids, and then a prophetess came to us one day and mentioned that God had a child for us. And it was like instantly within me, one moment before, I don't care if I have kids, and the next, I'm like, I need it. It's almost like I'm not complete without it. Well, that was a time when the Holy Spirit did that. Well, demonic spirits can do the exact same thing. So here, the demonic spirit is trying to convince this woman that she wants a baby, even though it's not a good time to have a baby. She meets with the second woman here, and they get together. And sometimes what the example I use, because God has given me this image, is that it's like chewing tobacco, and I'll even, my tongue will go into my lip, and the image is always like, you can do it. You can put chew in your mouth. You can do it one time. You can do it 5 times. You can do it 10 times, whatever. Doesn't necessarily mean that you get cancer, but the more you do it, the more likely you are to get cancer. And the more you are around somebody that has a demon, the more you're around a demon that is communicating always, the more likely you are to get that cancer, to have that thought or whatever thought it's saying come into your life and to begin to influence or even control you. So the second woman over here, all of a sudden, she wants a baby. And she thinks it's her thought. The problem with this is the doctors told her. Now she has 3 children. So this is not the desperation of a woman who has no children. She has 3 children, boys, girls. She's got all that covered. And yet the doctors have told her that if you have another baby, you will probably die. But she thinks there's no room in her theology for this being someone else's desire. She thinks it is her desire. So she is going to do something that's going to kill her, thinking that it's something that she wants. Paul said that we are not ignorant of Satan's schemes. You know what? If you don't believe that demons can speak into your mind, that they can give you thoughts and they can give you feelings, then you know what? You are ignorant of his schemes. Let me give you another story here. This was probably the time when I realized the most. I was like, holy cow, they really do mess with your mind. This was years ago, and my wife and I were at Applebee's, and we were eating together, and for whatever reason, God highlighted that there was a man in the kitchen who had a demon. And I heard his voice, I could feel the demon, and I knew, I don't always know this, but for whatever reason, I knew that the man was a homosexual because of the demon. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case. That's what homosexuality is. I'm saying this particular case, this man thought he was a homosexual, and he wasn't. He was listening to thoughts. I'm sure he had thoughts that were like, ooh, that man is handsome. I'd like to have sex with that man, whatever. He interprets it as, I am a homosexual. He's not. He has demonic influence in his life. Now, I didn't tell my wife anything about the man being a homosexual. I just told her there's somebody that has a demon. He's one of the waiters. And we just kept talking about other things. But when it came time for our food, that man actually brought our food. And he was behind my wife, so my wife couldn't even see him. And yet, when he got close, so she didn't have any of these thoughts before, but when he got close, she had a thought in her head that was so obviously not hers to anybody that knows her, that you go, there is no place that that thought could have come from except from a demon. Because, and she wouldn't even tell me what the thought was. She didn't even tell me she had a thought. She just kept asking me questions about this demon until finally I said, well, I know it's a demon that convinces this man he's a homosexual. And she said, oh. And then finally she told me the thought, but she wouldn't even say the words because my wife is gentle, my wife is caring and loving. She doesn't say anything bad about anybody. And when this guy got close, when the demon got close, she had a thought in her head that said, you are a, and she had to spell it, F-A-G. Because she wouldn't even say the word. That's how much it wasn't her thought. And so this is what happens all the time with demons. One person has a demon and it wrecks their life, like with this man who's a homosexual. Convinces him he's a homosexual, he's not, but it messes with his life. And then all of a sudden, this demon comes around a Christian. It senses the Holy Spirit. And he's like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put judgmental thoughts in your head, because Christians are really easy to manipulate because they are extremely judgmental. And many Christians, if not most Christians, don't understand that a lot of thoughts in their head are demonic thoughts. They are not their own. And so what happens is here's a man who's broken. That's what he is. That's why I don't even call that sin. I call that brokenness. I call that being controlled by a demon. That's what that is. I don't call that sin. I say this man is doing something where if we could remove the demon, he wouldn't even want to do it. So he's doing things he doesn't want to do. He's being manipulated to do them. But when that demon comes around a Christian, it says, kick him when he's down. But it uses holy language like, you know what God says about homosexuality? You know you are an abomination to God? Things like that. That's where you have to understand. One demon can send out different messages, speaks differently to different people, but it's all to steal, kill, and destroy. This is the last thing I'll say here that goes right along with this, because it's the same thing. I have seen over and over again that women who have been raped, women who have been abused, there's a demon that gets attached to them in the process. It's horrible. It's something I'll talk about next time probably, about why that happens. But then here's what you have to realize. This woman walks around with a demon then saying thoughts to her, probably blaming her for what happened, blah, 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 all of that. But then what happens is that demon right there shoots out other thoughts. I've seen many times how I know when a woman walks into a restaurant or walks somewhere, many times I recognize that she has a demon and that she's probably been abused, raped, whatever, because what that demon does is it sends out sexual thoughts everywhere it goes. Have you seen good women that constantly attract bad men? Have you seen that happen? Have you seen where a woman who's been abused finally breaks free of the man only to marry or get a boyfriend that's the exact same guy in a different face? I'm convinced that what happens is that woman has a demon, it keeps pushing her down, and it sends out all these sexual thoughts. And so if you're around this and you're a normal guy, all of a sudden, if you're a good guy, you get these sexual thoughts suddenly, and you're like, what's the deal? And you push them away because you're a good person overall. But what happens if you aren't? See, it's like a demon. When someone gets raped often and abused, comes on them, beats them up, and then puts a sexual calling card on them saying, come on, come on, come on. And it draws these bad men to her. It's absolutely crazy. I could give you more stories. I actually skipped over one of the stories I was going to tell because I could go on and on and on with this. This is the main way that I see people influenced. Thoughts in their own head, and they think it's my own thought. And until we begin to examine our thoughts, until we begin to be open to the fact that some of my thoughts are actually a demon communicating with me, then I will be influenced by demons.